You don't need a Dutch oven to bake bread, but if you want one anyway, Lodger's 5-quart cast iron 2-in-1 casserole pot is a good choice. That was a bit of a mouthful. This video won't cover cooking with cast iron. I'm only going to talk about using this Dutch oven to bake bread, and these are some of the loaves I've made in it. Let's get straight into the review. Cast iron retains heat incredibly well. I was using a stainless steel pan to bake my loaves in, and it's not a great conductor of heat, so my results were okay-ish. I kept putting off buying a Dutch oven because I thought I would get a Creuset, and they are so expensive. Then I started making sourdough regularly using my bread maker. I've made a video on that, by the way, and that's when I thought I should probably get a Dutch oven now. So I started researching, and I will cover alternatives later in the video. I recently tested baking sourdough without any kind of container. I used baking trays to add steam, and the bread turned out fine. I'll show you a side by side, but I prefer the loaf that I bake in my Dutch oven. I like the colour in the crust. You've got options when it comes to size, and this 5-quart pot is one of the bigger models. I generally bake a 400-gram loaf in it, and sometimes it takes up the entire width of the pot, but plenty of people use it to bake 500-gram loaves. When I talk about weight, I mean the weight of the flour. There's a 3.2-quart version that's smaller and not as deep, and it's popular for baking bread. I wanted the bigger version though, because a Redditor mentioned that their 500-gram loaves would sometimes hit the top of the 3-quart pot. I will pop the dimensions for both on screen now. I read a few reviews where people said that you could only bake round loaves in this Dutch oven, but that's not been my experience. You couldn't bake baguettes in it, but you can definitely bake batards. I love that you can use both the lid and the pot as the base. It is much easier to put your dough into the shallow lid rather than the deep pot. You can get dough slings to lower the dough safely into a deep pot, but I just use a scrunched up bit of baking paper and drop it into the lid. You can use the 3-quart version upside down as well, and there's another Lodge 5-quart pot with a more traditional lid that has a handle on top, but you can't invert that one. It's a multi-purpose pot. There's a well-known kitchen rule that says to avoid single-purpose kitchen items, and I did believe that for a while until I bought a cherry stoner. But it's nice when, bless you, it's nice when one thing can perform many functions. I've cooked with this twice, salmon and courgettes. The results were great, but the cleanup was a pain. And that is just a personal opinion on cast iron that I'm sure lots of people won't share. Overall, it is low maintenance. For baking bread, the main pot generally stays clean. The lid gets a bit floury, so I give it a quick wash and an oil, and that's it. For me, the price is one of the main selling points. I paid £68, and the price on Amazon really fluctuates. I put it in my basket when it was around £80-ish, and then the price increased, and I thought, oh no. But I waited and kept checking, and it eventually dropped. Currently, it's £100 in the UK and $60 in the US, so that is a bit of a shame if you're in the UK. I do think that price will move around though, and there will be sales too. I feel really happy with what I've got for 68 quid. It's built like a tank. I hope I never drop it, but if I did, I would be annoyed, but I wouldn't lose any sleep over it, and I would replace it fairly swiftly. I am not going to claim that this is the ultimate in cast iron. I have seen plenty of chefs on Reddit complain about Lodge being quite a rough and ready brand. Some people have said that the surface is like sandpaper and you need to cook with it a lot before it improves. I don't mind because I'm just baking bread in it. And when I used it to cook courgettes with the other pan on top, that is the Derek Sarno method of cooking with cast iron, I got a lovely colour on the courgettes and they didn't stick. Something to look out for, these pans are seasoned with oil on a hanging conveyor, so you'll often see a weird looking spot or mark that can look a bit rusty. It's just where it's been hanging and it's oil that isn't fully carbonised. It might eventually chip away, leaving a brown colour. It is fine and it will go as you start to use the pan. Mine only had a tiny mark. A lot of the reviews talk about Lodge having poor quality control, and if you've got any chips or cracks, of course you'll want to return it. But I think a lot of people have mistaken the seasoning spot for a defect, and I can see why if you don't know, so that is just something to be aware of. I like that there's no enamel here. Don't get me wrong, enamel can be great, but I've read that if you repeatedly heat an enamel Dutch oven empty to high temperatures, like you do when you bake bread, it can cause crazing, basically fine web-like cracks in the enamel. As long as the enamel isn't flaking off, it's still safe to use. And on the flip side, loads of people have baked bread in their enamel Dutch ovens for years and they have had no problems. But I like that it is not a consideration here. There is no enamel, so it won't craze or discolour. Editor Tanya here. I couldn't find a copyright-free image of crazing, so I thought I would show you these. My friend Jack made them. He took up pottery last year, and he deliberately added a crazing effect to these. He also made this lovely sponge holder and this comedy mug. He's very talented. On to the cons. It is heavy. Just shy of 6 kilos. I brace my core when I pick it up. I don't struggle with the weight, but it comes up a lot in the reviews. It feels slightly wrong to list it as a con because if they made it thinner, it would be lighter, but then it wouldn't function as well. It's going to come down to personal preference, but be mindful that it is just over 13 pounds. Sort of related, the handles are quite small. You're generally going to hold it with gloves, and I'll talk about those in a sec. But you can't really get your fingers in there with gloves on. Also, if you line the handles up, it's really hard to get the lid off because the pot and the lid sit perfectly flush. I now offset the handles and that works really well for me. I found that my regular oven mitts, which are like sock puppets, do not work well with this Dutch oven. The first few times I moved it in and out of the oven, I was terrified. It is so hot and really heavy and you've got no dexterity with chunky fabric mitts. I did some research, lots of people recommended welding gloves, but I ended up going for silicone, £15 on Amazon. They aren't perfect, I still feel a bit of heat through them, but I like that they have individual fingers and they're grippy, so I feel much safer handling the Dutch oven now. Last con, again, I'm not sure if it's really a con, but it is big and you will need to find somewhere to store it. Mine lives on an open shelf. And to me, it's nice looking, so I have no issue storing it like that. I think cast iron is really beautiful. And when I decorate houses in Animal Crossing, I always include the cast iron kitchenware. And actually, although I complained that the handles are a bit small, they do make the pot easier to store. The 3-quart pot has one handle that sticks out a bit more. I definitely prefer the handles here. I mentioned Le Creuset earlier. It is such a well-regarded brand. I've had their saucepans for 15 years, bless you, and I love them. Cole's got a cold. But a 24cm casserole dish is currently £320 and I can't justify that for bread, bless you. Because I have an Instant Pot, I tend to use that for anything that's stew or casserole-like. So that would make the Le Creuset a single-purpose item for me. When I bake bread, I put the Dutch oven into my oven empty and heat it to 240 degrees C or 465 Fahrenheit for half an hour. I'd be so cross if I spent £300 on a pot and then one day the enamel crazed. I did see that Le Creuset is considerably cheaper on Amazon, but some of the reviews wondered if they're factory seconds. They mentioned things like pinholes in the enamel. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't want to spend over £200 on something that isn't perfect. And if I dropped it, I would be heartbroken. I wouldn't be able to just go out and replace it instantly. Onto the Challenger. Have you seen it? It is amazing. It is custom built for baking bread and it is so well designed. I mean, look at the handles. When I first used my Lodge Dutch oven with my sock puppet gloves, I struggled because I wasn't used to its size. I have to put it on my lowest shelf. That is a point. Do check that it will fit into your oven. I've got a double oven and for years I just used the top part because the bottom had broken. I don't have that oven anymore, but I am positive this wouldn't have fitted in it. Anyway, as I was wrangling it, I did think, those Challenger handles would be nice right about now. And it's a good size too. You can fit 2 loaves side by side or baguettes. So why didn't I go for it? Partly because it's a single purpose item and it is really expensive. But the main reason is that I would have felt pressure to bake perfect loaves, like the ones you see on social media with the gorgeous crumb and the big ears. And I thought, what if I spent all that money on the Challenger and my loaves were crap? I'd be so disappointed. I'll show you the loaves I'm baking at the moment. I think they're pretty decent, especially as I'm sort of cheating by using a bread maker. If I baked more, I probably would treat myself to the Challenger, but I bake 1 loaf a week and the Lodge is perfect for that. And say I stopped baking sourdough. Like a lot of people, I went through phases with it. At least I could keep using the Lodge Dutch oven for other things, whereas the Challenger would sit on my shelf, sulking and judging me. What do you think? Are you looking to buy a Dutch oven? What are your considerations? And did I miss anything in my review related to bread, not cooking? Or do you own this already and do you love it as much as I do? I usually go for the more expensive option with longevity in mind, but this was the cheapest and I am just delighted with it. It does everything I need it to do. Oh, there's my clock. Okay, if you've got a bread maker, do check out my bread maker sourdough video. Subscribe for reviews, bread content and a bunch of recipes. Thank you for watching.